man. All right. Schedule rankings from easiest to most difficult. All right. This is pretty fun. This is a fun. I don't know what made me think of this the other day. I don't know why I put this together, Richie, but I wanted to tweet this out really quick. And then I wanted to go over it with you, see what you thought. So I'm going to start with mine first. I kind of go back and forth a couple of times. Let me add this to the stream. Pretty easy. Game one. I think the easiest game on our schedule is Duquesne. I think they're easily the worst team on the schedule. I think if they played our schedule, they'd go 0-12. So that one's a pretty easy one, right? Nothing too crazy there. Second, we disagree on this, and we'll kind of get into yours in just a second. We'll do both of our first four, and then we'll argue. I got Louisiana second, and here's why I put them second easiest. I think the timing of that game makes them the second easiest game on the schedule. If that was early, I think that would be a little bit tougher for us. I do think that since the team, if you look at the way the team played toward the end of the last year, really came together, really gelled well, I think Florida State has a tendency to start slow and pull it together at the end. There aren't a lot of we kind of do the opposite of Miami, right? Like we don't fall asleep at the very end of the year or just put it in a neutral and stink. I really think that by that time we'll really be clicking. And I think that game being in Doak, I like us to win that one pretty handily. Louisiana lost quite a few guys, and they had a good team last year. Obviously, Billy Napier came from there. But I do think that'll be a pretty easy win. I like us by 3 or 4 touchdowns in that game. I don't think that's close at all. I've got Georgia Tech next, mostly because that's a home game. When you look at the other teams that kind of make out your schedules, I like Georgia Tech here as the third easiest game. I guess you go back and forth on this or Louisiana, but I just think that the fact that they're in a Power 5 conference, their trenches will be a little bit better. We always seem to struggle with Georgia Tech, no matter what it is, where it is, who the coach is. But I like them as our third easiest game. And then I've got Syracuse 4. Having to travel north is kind of crappy. I don't love that, but I think their talent is so low. I think they're going to finish last in the division. I like Syracuse as our fourth easiest game. Let's look at yours real quick, and then we will go and talk about it. So you've got Duquesne as well.
Yeah, Duquesne, it's going to be the easiest one. And I went with Georgia Tech here. You can make an argument for Georgia Tech or Louisiana here. I'm kind of looking at Louisiana as kind of a trap game. I don't think it's a game Florida State's going to lose, but being, 6 days before you play Florida, after coming off of that road trip to Syracuse, I just think it'll be a little trickier. Again, if we're losing any of these, 4 games, we're in trouble anyway.
Yeah, we're talking 10th to 11th. We're not it's not like Richie's putting Georgia Tech at 3.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think we start to differ a little bit here again. I believe I have.
Well, we just flipped these two. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Boston College.
Yeah. So I just think I know they have a couple players. I just not impressed them as a team. I don't think I would be surprised if they do not go to a bowl this season. I know they're out of conference makes it much easier than like Florida State's out of conference schedule. I just think these are 4 games that you got to win them all, right? If you drop one of these, it's probably a really bad sign for the season.
Yeah, I can see you having Boston College over my Syracuse. I think Syracuse is a little bit worse of a team. They've got less players, but you're also traveling then. And so BC's at home. So I could see the argument there either way. I still like my Syracuse being slightly easier just because to me it's more about players than location. I think Boston College's quarterback is much better than Syracuse's. Jurkovec. They also have Zay Flowers, which worries me a little bit, but nothing crazy. Again, I think you should certainly beat those teams. All right, these are your middle 4 games. This one shocked me a little bit. We'll stay with you, but you have as our 7th easiest game. Our 7th most difficult game, right? The 5th easiest. You have Wake Forest here. That shocked me a little bit. Wake Forest is the only team that blew us out last year. Let's talk about that.
So I'm just not as high on them as a lot of people. I know that there's a lot of talk about Hartman being back. Got some solid receivers. I'm just, again, I did put, where these games are played on a premium. I think, at that point, we were 4 or 5 games into the season. You get Wake Forest at home. Obviously the game was a disaster last year, but if you don't turn the ball over 6 times, you're probably in that game late. So I just think it was a total disaster. Jordan Travis doesn't start the game, gets to go in for a series. I mean, I think he was pressing, trying to do too much on that Hail Mary at the end of the half, gets himself hurt, knocked out for the rest of that game and the next one. I just think this is a game Florida State should win. Again, I get it. I'm a much lower on Wake Forest than the majority of college football fans. So I'll just leave it at that. I'm just not as high on them as most people are.
Yeah, no, I like your reasoning there. I still think it's a little high, but then you have Syracuse, the road trip to Syracuse. You got the middle of the pack, right? Like this. So I think this is your sixth game. You're saying they're kind of average on our schedule. Syracuse here, you're a little higher on them than me.
I think I'm higher on Syracuse than most people. So Syracuse, if Syracuse and Wake were playing, the game day picks would probably be like 81% for Wake Forest right now. I like getting Wake Forest at home and traveling to Syracuse, the boring part of the state that late in the season. Obviously, you're in a dome, so the elements aren't a major factor. I just don't like going up there to that place. I remember Willie's first year, all the press that were complaining, because remember that at that point they didn't even have air conditioning. It was like 90 degrees in the press box.
It was called the Carrier Dome, and they didn't have air conditioning.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
And again, I'm not going to be mad at anybody who says flip those, because I think you can. I just see the game itself for Florida State. I'd rather get Wake at Doak than go up to Syracuse late in the season.
You then have Florida here as so this will be your sixth toughest game. This game's at home. Obviously, we just talked about it on Friday night of Thanksgiving week. I'll do both of these so you can see them. So Florida and then LSU.
Correct. So I think Florida getting them at Doak, I think, the rosters, I think LSU probably has a slightly better roster. First year for Billy Napier, I'm just not impressed so far. We'll see what happens with AR-15 if he's able to make it to the end of the season. He's kind of like Jordan Travis, the way we discuss him. Like, we like him if he's healthy. And LSU, I think the main reasoning I have this low in kind of the mid-tier games, it's just in the perfect spot in the schedule, right? They don't have a warm-up game. You get a warm-up game. It's their first game, new offense, new defense, new everything. If LSU was, if that game were in November or October, I'd probably have it as a little tougher, because I do think they're going to end up being a really good team. You just catch them at the perfect time.
So here's my middle four games. I've got BC here back at home as my, again, fifth easiest game. So a little higher on them than Richie is. I kind of mentioned that. Jerkovich, Jay Flowers, we seem to let quarterbacks just absolutely light us up if they have a great target like that. And so hoping to be wrong there. But again, that's a game I think Florida State should win. That's your fifth easiest game of the schedule. In fact, if you look back at mine, I think we have to, I think there are 5 sure wins on the schedule, and it's these 4 and Boston College. So I got them a little higher than Richie does, but still that's a must win. Next, I've got Florida. I flipped Florida here on this one, and I'll talk about why on these two. Yeah, I like Wake a little bit more than Florida. I like how we'll be playing at the end of the year. AR's trying kind of struggle with some injury issues and stuff. And I just think that Wake, with their quarterback, with Hartman, somebody mentioned it, it feels like he's been there for about 10 years. I just think their quarterback play is a little bit better. Now, Florida will be better in the trenches. They'll have better athletes. You get them a little later. You may get them kind of banged up. First-year system, as opposed to Wake's, kind of got some guys that have been in it for a while. I think Wake's going to be slightly more difficult than Florida. I could flip those two and say, the rivalry game, and so that makes Florida a little bit tougher. But I just don't think Florida's going to be very good this year. I could see Wake winning 8 or so games. I think Florida's going to win 6 or 7. I could see both of our teams going into that game at 6-5, and the winner ends up getting to 7 wins. So Florida, then Wake. Now I've got LSU for the same reasons you do, right? LSU is my 5th toughest game, which is kind of crazy. I don't think that's super, I think that the things you mentioned, getting them at kind of a good time, getting them early, us having the game to prepare for it, not having to go to Baton Rouge. As much as I'd love to go to Baton Rouge as a fan to win this game, I'm happy that game is in New Orleans. It's kind of split feelings there, because I'd rather be in Baton Rouge, but I'd rather not play them in Baton Rouge.
It's probably worth 3 or 4 points being in the Dome as opposed to Baton Rouge. It may be even more, because at that place at night, I've never been. I've had friends, they say, listen, I love Florida. I love going to Florida State. It's nothing like LSU at night for a big game there.
I've been to top 5 matchups at the Swamp. I've been to top 3 matchups at Doak. I've been to I went to Clemson Notre Dame when both those teams were ranked, and that game went to overtime. I've been to some big stuff. I've been to neutral site stuff. I've been to, which those are never as loud. When I went to Alabama LSU in 2016, and that was a top 10 matchup, it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Like I literally felt the play. Like first drive of the game, Jalen Hurts throws an interception from his own end zone, and LSU has the ball on like their own 30, and they didn't even end up scoring there. But the place was like shaking. I was down in the end zone. So yeah, I'm thankful to not have to go to Baton Rouge. As much as I'd love to go to Baton Rouge, I'm thankful to not have to go. Okay, we were the same on our top 5 games. So not a lot of argument here. We both picked LSU in that spot, but our top 5 games were our top 4 games. We're all the same. Yeah, I think the Louisville game is tougher. We'll go back and forth on these, and I'll let you do the next one. I think the Louisville game is tougher. I think having to go on the road on a Friday night is slightly tougher against a team that returns Malik Cunningham. I think they're a little bit better at the quarterback position. We've shown some struggles with them in the past, being able to contain him on the ground and through the air. I think that going on the road, a true road game on a Friday night against Louisville is slightly tougher than going and playing LSU in a neutral site game. I think if these two teams played each other, I think I'd lean LSU on like a neutral site. Which is kind of crazy. I mean, they're 4th and 5th, so I don't think we're saying like, oh, one's 8th and one's 1st. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'd probably lean LSU. But if LSU had to go play, like if we played LSU in Baton Rouge and Louisville at home, I would flip these. Like I'd have LSU as slightly tougher. So having to go on the road, I think that Louisville is the slightly tougher game. That said, we're going to talk about schedules in 2 weeks, I think. You got to split these 2 games to me because I think you beat Duquesne. I think you beat BC. So you're 2-2 at worst, right? Coming out of those first 4 games. If you can split these 2 games, if you can win either your 4th or your 5th most difficult game, and you can get to 3-1 to start that year, I think you go into that Wake Forest game, which would be the very next week, as a favorite. And I think that would be huge to potentially get to 4-1. I mean, that's crazy. You got to split these 2 games to me. Louisville and LSU going to be really, really big. Again, they're your 4th and 5th toughest games. You need to find a way to win one of them. I'll let you do Miami. Miami on the road, our 3rd toughest game of the year.
Yeah, and obviously the game was a dogfight last year. I think anytime we go down there, we all have our jokes for Miami's attendance, and they're well-deserved. But when Florida State's there, it is a packed house, and it is an intimidating environment. I remember Willie's first game when we had the big lead early. When Francois got strip sacked, that place just went nuts. And just watching on the TV, you felt like everything turned. That game had changed there. So it is a tough venue. I think they have, probably the best quarterback in the ACC. They did lose a good bit, so we'll see what they have.
Best quarterback on our schedule.
Yeah, so that Miami, we like to get our jokes off and have a good time. They should be a good team, and Cristobal, he's a solid coach. He's nothing special as far as X's and O's go, but I do think Miami has the better roster right now, mainly because you have to give them the edge at quarterback. And I'm a big fan of Jordan Travis, but Tyler Van Dyke, obviously we'll remember the spike forever, but that's going to be a tough game. And right now I probably have us losing it, in my opinion, the 3rd toughest on the schedule.
Yeah, I think, this and the next 2 games are going to be incredibly difficult for Florida State to win. Not that it's impossible. This is the most likely, obviously, out of the 3 if we say it's the 3rd toughest. But, Van Dyke had a really good year last year. I don't think he'll be as good this year, but he also, pretty much lost them the game last year. We were able to build up a pretty good lead because of his 3 turnovers. And, if you're counting on a quarterback to come out and have 3 turnovers, that is something that kind of keeps you in a game or gives you a chance to win the game, probably less likely than not that they're going to be one of your tougher games. I think going there is going to be slightly tougher than going to Louisville, but not impossible. I think this is a game that Florida State could win. I think Miami will be like a 7-ish point favorite, and we'll kind of see from there what ends up happening. 2 games left. We agreed here. I was interested to see if you would maybe flip these because of location.
I thought about it.
Did you think about it?
Yeah, and honestly,
show it since we're here.
Thinking, I just think Clemson, that we're not going to be able to block Clemson at all. So, you're going to have to get some magic like we saw last year up there. But I definitely considered NC State because, we're doing bold predictions here in a little bit. Here's the early one for you. I think the NC State game might be the biggest spread we see on the schedule at the time the game is played. But I picked Clemson because it's the week right after NC State. And I think that, Clemson, they have the best roster of the conference. It's not close. And if they can figure anything out at quarterback, they're instantly a playoff team, or at least certainly a contender for the playoff.
Yeah. It didn't do us any favors giving us the old NC State, Clemson in back-to-back weeks. Yeah. A bye after that before Georgia Tech, which is helpful for that Georgia Tech game, but would have loved that bye before Clemson if possible. I think, these are your toughest two games, and you could really flip-flop them either way. Going to NC State's not going to be easy. Having Clemson come in is not going to be easy. I think Clemson will be a little bit better than they were last year. I think we'll be a little bit better than we were last year too. So by no faults, I think Clemson at their best versus us at our best. I think they're just better. They just have more playmakers. They have more athletes. I thought the defense, as much as, Florida State fans want to get on our defense and talk down on our defense and this, that, and the other, I thought Florida State's defense against them last year was actually pretty good. What we hold them to, what was the final score of the game? 20 to
30, but the most ridiculous way to give up 30 points ever.
So we held them to 17, 16 points before the last 3 minutes of the game, and I think that's pretty impressive. So I don't know if our defense will hold them that well again this year. I don't know if our offense, you'd hope that offense can score a little bit more than whatever we had, 13 points minus the Jermaine Johnson thing. So I think that's going to be the tough one. NC State, though, I don't know if they're going to be as good. I thought we played NC State really, really well last year and without Jordan Travis. And so I just think going on the road to Raleigh is really, really difficult. But I could see us, I can see a path where we upset NC State, keep it really close, find a way to work some magic in the end, and go from there, right? Jordan has a good game. He's healthy. He's there. Clemson, I don't really see a path for us to beat Clemson unless things get really, really crazy, which football is crazy. Things like that happen. So
I'll just say this year, last year when we were doing a show like this, we gave ourselves zero chance to beat Clemson, pretty much zero chance to beat Florida, very unlikely chance to beat Miami. And then the season happened, and I think we were pleasantly surprised. Obviously, you want to get more wins when you're playing that many close games, but there's no game on the schedule I look at and say, that's an auto loss. And
right.
That's not been the case the past few years. There's been games you looked at and said, why are we even going to play this game? Clemson it's still probably 80-20. They win the game, but it's not. I'm not worried about seeing a 28-point spread when the game week comes, which we saw a few years ago.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Need some more Toe Philly magic. So we would definitely take that. All right. Do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Swipe down in the chat if you're on your mobile and hit that subscribe button, smash the like button. If you really love us, hit the share button. That'd be really cool if you sent that over to your social medias, but we'll take likes and subscribes as well.